another episode of the Money Talks podcast. Welcome. I'm your host, Andrea Heng. This episode is brought to you by Prudential Singapore. Now, I want you to search your memory bank and go back to when you were in your 20s and perhaps even your first paycheck. Let's put it there. It made you feel powerful. You finally had a sense of financial independence. And the future seemed really far away. Oh, I've got plenty of years left to work, to figure things out when it comes to money. Sure, this does feel liberating at first, but there comes a point in time when priorities start to change, and so must your financial habits. But how do we even start this journey right? Well, today, I am joined by someone who faced exactly this dilemma not too long ago. He spent his early career thinking that he had money all figured out. But just a few years ago, he faced a reality that required him to think about how to prepare for buying a house, how to provide for his family. And he knew something had to change. Hi, Walter. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on the show, Andrea.
Okay, so I want to take you back to your 20s, to, when you had this, or maybe not your 20s, but maybe when you had this realization, oh no, I have to start saving up for a house. I have to start saving up for my family in the future. Talk me through that journey, that emotional journey. Like, what was that? Like, what was going through your mind?
I think the key thing that went through my mind was, do I have enough? Right? Is this enough with the rising cost of inflation? Are there challenges that I don't see now, but it may come in the future? Basically, like trying to look through a crystal ball and ask myself, is it enough?
What triggered it though?
What triggered is, conversations with friends, articles that you read, even listening to your podcast, sometimes you ask yourself whether, is it enough, right? Then you start to realize that, maybe I should do a little bit more study on this. Maybe I should do a little bit more comparison, more chats with my friends, talk to the experts in this and try to figure out, do I have it all covered actually?
Okay, so where are you at now in this journey?
I think I'm still learning.
Okay.
Obviously, I think it's a journey that will continue to grow and you actually kind of fine-tweak things and see how best things work out for you and your family. So I'd say that I'm probably better than before, but not exactly where I want to be yet.
Right. I mean, that's all of us, I think. It's a constant learning journey, right? So you have a house now?
Yes, I do have a house. Yes, I have a family.
Okay. So you feel like when you had this realization to fast forward now with your house and your young family, do you feel you've done enough just for now?
Yeah, I think it's okay not for now.
Okay.
Right. But then again, just living contented for now is always good, but could it be better?
Yeah.
I think that's the question we often ask ourselves, right?
And we have to think ahead also, right? What's going to happen in the future?
Yeah, with all uncertainties, a lot of changes in the industry, in the work life that we have, right? Some people think of retiring early. How do I actually change this situation?
Do you want to retire early?
Of course, I'm sure all of us want to retire early at some point of time.
I know.
Yeah.
Can't stop thinking about that. But that's another conversation for another time. I want to rewind even further back now to your 20s, maybe your first paycheck. What was the first thing that you spent that first paycheck on?
Oh, that's quite a long time ago. It's about maybe say 15 years ago. I first got my paycheck. It was not a big amount, but of course very thankful that I found a job. Obviously, a lot of graduates struggle with that. In finding my first paycheck, I remember having to buy two big purchases actually.
Okay.
Right, one of them is actually a car.
Oh.
And a lot of people will be like, "What? Spending your first paycheck on a car?" Yeah,
I know.
It was challenging, right? The reason because in my job of work that I do, I actually do require to drive to my customer site.
I see.
Right, so we are given car allowance in some sense, so you can actually use that to offset. But having that down payment at the start was really difficult. I still remember I had to borrow from my parents the initial down payment.
Yeah.
And making sure that I have to pay them back. So that was one of the big ticket items I had to purchase right within the first couple of months of my paycheck.
Wow.
The second one was buy myself a watch.
Oh, you're into watches.
I was into watches, but back then when I first started buying my watch, I just buy something simple, something nice, just to remember my first paycheck. Right, I remember I had my first paycheck still somewhere in my house,
Really?
It's
You
in form
kept
of a
it?
letter, it's in form of
Yes.
A4 letter. Yeah, I still have it somewhere kept in my drawer or somewhere.
You should frame that up.
I don't know if I want to remind myself how low I was paid back then, but
Well, it's also a reminder of how far you've come, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So are you still buying watches now?
a lot lesser now.
Yeah.
Right, and I mean, watches are, things that people will kind of appreciate because it's some hobbies,
that's
stuff
true.
like that. But again, how much do you actually buy, right?
Yeah.
And then there's always a never-ending trend on those kind of stuff as well, as you know.
Yeah. And of course, when your priorities change,
Exactly.
you think very differently about how you
Sure.
spend your money,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. So after you spent that first paycheck, right, what was your approach to your finances after that? Like, did you feel like, okay, I need to start looking ahead, or were you still sort of, in a way, hand to mouth kind of thing?
I would say, at the early start of my career, having a pay coming in monthly is definitely essential, for your basic living. And back then, when I first started my career, I wasn't married. So, you could live whatever you want on, right? You want to eat this, you want to do that, you want to go out, you want to spend on
Freedom,
that.
financial
A lot of freedom.
and physical freedom.
Yeah, a lot of that freedom. But then I think only when it started that when I got married, that's where I started to think a bit more about my family, having parents who are aging, how do you actually support them? And then how do you actually make do with all these changes around you? Right? Then I start to realize that maybe I have to do something different about it.
Okay. What was that something different that you...
So I remember the big change came for me during COVID.
Okay.
When everybody was unable to travel out, everybody was kept at home. We were working from home, a lot of Zoom calls and stuff. Then I started to realize that when I checked my friends, they were all going into some form of investments. And I was like, investments, interesting. I thought you can only do it, via face-to-face interactions with people, right?
Yeah.
Financial advisors,
Yes.
and all that stuff. So that actually got me started first to think about, hey, I actually could do this on my own. Right? But then again, how big should I go, right? Because I also worried that, I may lose money.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is that a lot of times when you talk to your friends or people around you, they only tell you the good things like, oh, I'm making money from this. Oh, I'm doing well in that. But seldom to rarely people tell you that they're actually losing a lot of money
Of
from
course.
that. Savings from it, right? And you're not talking about just 1,000 or 2. It could be hundreds of thousands.
Oh, yes.
Right. So I just wanted to be very careful. So I started off very small in that little setup that I did. Right. Until now, I think it's been growing actually.
Okay. And has that, now that it's obviously part of a habit now for you, right? It's routine. You have your salary, you also now have your investments, and I'm sure you have all your other plans sorted out, financially speaking. So has this become enough for you? Does it give you enough security financially?
I think it so depends how much is enough, right? I mean, some people will depend on the kind of lifestyle they want.
Of course.
Right? With how much you earn, how much lifestyle do you want to have, the kind of holidays you want to go for, do you want to retire early? I guess it's a constant discussion I have with my wife to think about how do we want to plan our future. Like, is it enough? Or is it something that we probably have to think a little bit more about the future if kids come along, right?
Yeah.
How do you actually plan for those kind of things? I think that thing actually changed for us along the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what about your wife? What was she like in her 20s when she was, employed and had all this salary money to spend?
I guess she was probably similar situation as me, right? Being the youngest, I think she was also given a lot by her family, right? So she didn't have to worry a lot at the start. But I know as we started our own family, we want to be independent.
Yeah.
We want to be financial independent from our parents, being able to afford, just get them out for dinner, buy them meals. I thought that actually requires us to actually think a bit more about our savings and how we actually spend our money as well.
Okay. What do you not miss about being in your 20s and having all this money? What mistake would you correct if you had the chance?
Well, I think when I was in my 20s or early start of my career, you started to get your pay.
Yeah.
You started to be a bit independent on what you want to do. You don't have to ask, parents for money and stuff like that. I think a lot of times you started to, spend a lot of money on your hobbies, right? Things that you like to do.
Yeah.
So I do have a few hobbies that I spend on, right? I'm not going to dwell too much on it, but those are actually quite expensive hobbies, I would say, right? And when you spend on those things, then you start to ask yourself whether is it really necessary. Because sometimes as I look back after spending this money, I start to ask myself, if I could turn back time back then, would I have spent that much? Maybe could I just buy 1 or 2 of it instead of buying 4 or 5 of it? Sometimes when you see certain discounts, right, and then you start to tell yourself, maybe I need another pair of shoes, example. But actually, do you really need it? And after a while, I realized if you don't use it, it gets damaged, right?
Yeah. I'm thinking, I'm in the same sort of scenario as you right now, right? In thinking, okay, just because it's on discount, yes, you're saving money, but you'll save even more money if you don't buy it at all.
Yep.
Because you don't need it, right?
Yep, that's true.
Yeah. So do you happen to meet people in their 20s in your line of work, by the way?
Yeah, I do. A lot of our young colleagues in the company does join. They are in their early 20s.
Okay.
Or even their late 20s. Right? A lot of them come in with a lot of expectations. They are different in the way they are wired.
Right.
Not in a bad or good way, but just different.
Different, yeah.
Yeah, just different.
Okay. And how different are they when it comes to thinking about money, their attitude towards money versus our generation?
I think the key difference I see from them is they are trying to see how best to make their dollar count, right? What's the best deal for it? It's not about being spendthrift,
right?
And I don't think it's about being prudent. I think they just want to see where that $1 can get them to,
right?
So
versus maximum returns.
Yeah, maximum returns. Along that lines.
Okay.
Whereas for my time when I look back 20 years old, right, or 20-ish years old, I think for me, just having the money to spend on something that I like at that moment, right? At that moment, it feels so good.
I know.
Right. But then after that, you realize that, do I really need this or not? Then you start think a lot right after that.
Yeah. I'm still doing
I
that.
guess you're
now.
all guilty of that.
I think all of us have that vice, if you want to call it that, right? So I asked you about your interactions with those in their 20s now, because there's an argument that people in their 20s should be able to spend their adult money. And I think we were in this position too, right? We get
certainly.
adult money, we get to spend it. And at a time when I'm not tied down by any debt, any financial obligations. So if I'm someone who wants to enjoy life a bit, what do I need to make sure is in place before I start spending that play money?
I guess for them, to spend that kind of money on that little vice you just talked about, I think it's okay. But you also got to think about, what happens after that, right?
Yeah.
Like, in spending the money they have now, some people spend whatever they have every month. It comes in and comes out. Maybe some of them have parents that can back them up. Like, if you're not enough, there's always a fallback plan.
Yeah.
There's a fallback plan, right? But is that the kind of life you want to live, right? And even if you do have that financial freedom later on, as I mentioned many times, is it enough? Right? I think a lot of the young people now have to think about that before they start spending a lot now.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that they spend a lot on is travel, right? Because, I mean, it's two-pronged. They have this money, they have the opportunity, but I think also low-cost airlines, social media has made it a very desirable thing and very aspirational thing for people in their 20s to travel a lot more than what we did in our 20s, right, Walter? How much should they be setting aside for this kind of fun stuff, fun spending, right? Travel, hobbies, etc. I mean, how prudent do they need to be?
Oh, okay. Another good question. I mean, I myself travel a lot. I'm sure you do as well.
Yeah.
And for us, traveling is sometimes a luxury. Sometimes a way of distressing from your work, right?
Yeah.
Short trips, long trips. One of the things that I do quite a lot is actually setting up an account or separately setting up some funds for this travel.
Right.
So at every month, think about it as your pay comes in. You set aside a certain amount, especially that you have a travel trip coming up.
Yeah.
Right. And what we do is, being an engineer from background, is very systematic, right?
Yes.
You plan backwards, like how many days you're going for, how much you spend in a day, what hotel look like, how does transportation look like.
Yeah.
You work backwards, factor in, some factor in, like say 1.5% more, just in case there are buffers there.
That's right.
And then you set aside that money. So if I have set aside that money, I know that I'm ready. Then, like you say, now with a lot of cheaper airlines, social media, a lot of good deals out there.
Yes.
That many years ago when I first started, right, there's probably not a lot. Now we have a lot of social media stuff that tells you where to go.
Yeah.
The cheapest deal, the best deal, so you do save some way.
Yeah, exactly that. And I wish we had that in our 20s too. So they really have a lot of options. So when you were younger, your approach was to save money in the bank. And you felt like, okay, at least it's safe there.
Yeah.
This was before you started your investing journey, right, during COVID. Did that make you think beyond just saving? I mean, when you were thinking about protecting your future, including your child or children, your family, your home, did you also think about things like, okay, how do I guard against inflation? How do I guard against market changes? How do I guard against retrenchment, that sort of stuff? Because you never know in this environment today. It's so uncertain, right? What lessons would you pick from when you were younger that you would advise 20-year-olds now about protecting themselves financially this way?
Looking at the lessons I've learned in the past, right? One of the things I would say is, start saving now, actually.
Yeah.
There's never a better time than now if you have not started saving, right? To plan for that kind of future. For me, it started a bit later than most people. Like you said, I have my money in the bank. I mean, all of us have salary credit to the bank.
Yeah.
It is safe, but as you know, the interest is in the 0.0% kind of range. It's not that great. Then do you want to do a little bit more for yourself? Like basically make your money work for you, right?
Yes.
So start savings. While it's important, you also have to start kind of diversifying your investments, right? So, you could actually put money in fixed D, right? Will probably give you a little bit more interest in the single digit kind of range, right? Or could you actually talk to people who are in the industry who are able to help you kind of better plan for it?
Yeah.
So I guess there are many different aspects of how you can go about doing that when you're younger.
Yeah.
And I would have done that much earlier if I could.
Yeah. I think also another thing that they should be thinking about as part of their laundry list is protection against income loss, right? Making sure that your insurance is sorted out also. And I think as a young person, you are healthier. There are insurance plans out there that are affordable within what you can afford, right?
Yep.
So you started your investment journey in COVID. I want to go back to that, right? When you started doing that and now you're sort of having this engine going 5 years down the road, What was the most eye-opening lesson that you learned after you started wealth planning more intentionally?
So I know some companies like mine, we do have employee stock purchase options.
Oh, that's nice.
Right, so you could actually purchase stocks at a lower price, and then you could buy using a certain percentage of your pay. I think those are things that to me is a no-brainer. Right, the other part that I think about, and I mentioned as well, is on fixed D.
Yes.
Right, moving your bucket around. But of course, with that, you have to find time to read out what's the latest, which bank is giving the better offer. You have to move, and these are all mainly short-term, I would say.
6 months.
6 months to a year, right? But you have to find time to go and read out where to put it in, right?
That's
to make
right.
sure it makes sense. The other thing I think about is, having this conversation with somebody that you can trust, be a friend, a family member, or even some experts in the industry, in the financial industry, to help you realize, what are you missing out?
Yeah.
All the things that you've been doing so far, what else could you do?
Yeah.
Right? And then having that financial expert come and tell you. And of course, I mentioned about having someone that you trust, because sometimes, you don't feel comfortable sharing exactly, with your close friends.
And sometimes those close friends end up being not so close friends because
Sure.
they give bad advice.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. So having that financial expert come and tell you some of the areas where, basically I say blind spots or areas that you don't know.
Yes.
Actually, gaining this knowledge actually helps me to make a better decision.
Yeah.
How do I want to put my finances into another bucket right there? So it could be linked with endowment plans, linked with retirement plans, with a bit of coverage for your health insurance, right? So it kind of works in different ways, So
Yeah.
I guess with this factor of different buckets, I think that actually makes me a little bit more comfortable with my financial situation.
Yeah, because at least you feel like, your blind spots, as you said, are covered.
Yeah.
Was it surprising to you to learn how much inflation can erode some of the cash savings or even some of the gains that you may make in your investments?
Yeah, I think that will definitely be one area where, inflation comes, even you don't want it to come, it will come and hit all of us.
Yes.
Right, just in some
No
areas.
one is spared.
No one is spared, yeah.
Yeah.
And just that it hit some people harder in some countries. Right, like if you look at just the rising cost after COVID, you have seen things have shot up so much.
Yes.
Right, when you go traveling, you used to think that you could buy $1 with that thing. Now it costs you maybe $1.50 or $2 even. Right?
Yeah.
So just inflation indeed is catching up. Then the question to ourselves is, are we able to catch up, or even be on par at least, or even better than inflation?
Yes.
Right. So again, coming back to my point about diversifying your investments, right? I think that will actually help, because some of those rates are actually going up faster.
Yeah.
The gains are faster than the inflation rates that's going
Yeah,
on.
and not forgetting, I think tools like your CPF, sometimes those really beat inflation.
Sure.
That might be quite helpful as well. So when you are younger, and I don't miss this feeling at all, it's very easy to feel intimidated by everything that we're talking about right now, right? Especially when you meet your friends, like you met your friends, and it was only then that you discovered, oh, I'm behind my peers in what they are doing with their money. And it makes you feel a bit FOMO, but also like fearful that you haven't done enough. And I was in this position. I still am in this position sometimes. What advice do you have for someone who has this feeling? They are
this feeling.
overwhelmed. Yeah, they're feeling overwhelmed. They're scared. They're intimidated. What's your advice to them?
I feel like you don't have to kind of compare people like them, right? It's good to know.
Yeah.
So you're being aware. But I think putting yourself up for comparison could be, setting yourself in a very difficult position, right? Because everybody's situation is different.
Yes.
Some of you may have more trouble because you pay more loans, school loans, housing loans, whereas some people may not have to do that. Some people have cars, some people don't. So I think comparing with your friends, apple to apple, may not be a good way of looking at it. But definitely being aware that there are avenues that they're actually investing on, right, or how they're actually saving their money, could be kind of trigger points for you to think about in your own situation, how would it be different for you?
Customize it to your own life.
Customize it to your own life. Yes, exactly like what you said, right? So taking some of the, person A said something, person B said something, person C said something, how can you take the best of everybody and apply it to yours to make it your customized plan?
Yeah, exactly that. And I also want to point out, just because one of your peers has a car, that's only what you see on the surface. You don't know what struggles they have financially as well. So like you said, take the good, leave the bad.
Yeah.
That's generally good advice. So based on everything that you've learned, everything that we talked about today also, what are your top 3 most important things that you think every 20-something should do with their money?
Okay. I think I mentioned earlier part of the show on this talk, right, that you got to start saving and you got to start now if you have not started it. I think
Never
that's-
too late.
Yeah, it's never too late, right? You got to start now. Find a way to make yourself save or force yourself to save. Right?
Yeah.
There could be many ways to do that. You could set up a separate account. You could have an accountability partner like your wife to make sure that you are saving, right? So just make that a priority, right? That's the first point I would say. The second one I could think of is, being contented with what you actually have, right? Don't chase for every upgrade, for every cheap deal, every discount, you go for it. Because at some point of time after you purchase it, you may feel good, but if you look down the road, you may not even use it or you may not like it.
Yeah.
The third tip I would say for all the listeners out there in the 20s is, have a friend, a trusted person, right, or a financial advisor that you can talk to and you can relate to basically have that input for yourself so that you know that you're not going to be, in a way, losing out and you have the knowledge to know what you need to do.
Okay. What about someone older listening to this, wishing they had started sooner? What's your word of advice to them about how they should approach their money now? They may be in their 30s, even their 40s. Is it too late?
I think it's never too late. I think in this category, I'm talking about people like myself. Like I said, it's not an end product. You have to continue to learn.
Absolutely.
And see how things evolve. Even in the market, you start to talk to financial advisors about the products they're selling. It's always evolving to the needs of the people of the working generation now, right? So start thinking about how you can actually diversify that as well, right? So getting in touch with your advisors, right? Having a chat with them to realize how are things changing and how could it benefit you.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. The second thing I would say is you really got to plan for your retirement. I think retirement is on everybody's mind.
Yeah.
But, how early? I hear of people complain that the retirement age is going up, but they're not doing anything about it.
Yeah.
Right? They just keep complaining, right? But what are you doing about it to kind of help yourself, right?
Correct.
Through the situation.
Yeah.
And, like I said earlier on, everybody's situation is different. Some people may need 7-digit to retire. Some may need 6-digit, right? Some may need a lot more. So it kind of depends what you want to figure that out with your family, yourself, and make it a priority and something that you're comfortable to kind of work towards that.
Yeah. And once you have that plan in place, it's easier for you to plan, all the leisurely stuff that you want to do.
Sure, like
that
holidays,
yeah,
just talk about,
exactly. And you can do it with your mind at ease. I think what stands out from our conversation, Walter, is that getting your finances in order as early as possible, even though it's not too late, is always going to be beneficial for your future. Thank you so much for sharing your advice on the show.
Thanks for having me on our show. In fact, one of the things I had to call out is really listening to Money Talks on your podcast. It did help me.
Oh.
And of course, some of my friends as well. So I think I would encourage our listeners to actually listen in.
Yeah.
Right. And also ask questions.
Yes, ask questions. And questions and feedback is what we value here on Money Talks. You can write to us at cnapodcasts@mediacorp.com.sg. Thanks for that shout out, by the way, Walter. Money Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and Me Listen. Don't forget to leave us a rating wherever you're listening to us from. Thanks to the team, Tiffany Ang, Nat Fetalvero, Junaini Johari, Ho Pei Ning, Joanne Chan, Charlene Tan, and Justin Garnell. I'm Andrea Heng signing off for the Money Talks podcast. This episode has been brought to you by Prudential Singapore.